introducing our pilot project to you, which we gave the title of Mixing Faith and Counselling, a survey report from Indonesia. What we set out to do was to do a pilot project surveying the general public and interviewing Muslim and Christian counselors in Indonesia. We have threefold purpose. The first one is to survey the interest and perspectives of the general public regarding counseling and mixing of faith and counseling. And the second purpose was to do a survey of the religious affiliation and psychological training of Muslim and Christian counselors and the extent to which they apply their religion in their counseling practice. And the third one is to understand from the counselors how their clients' religious affiliations and attitude towards mixing faith and counseling helps or constrains counseling efforts. Now, to do this, we did a public survey, a short one, albeit, using Google Forms. It was easily accessible for us here in Indonesia. And then we also interviewed Muslims and Christian mental health professionals for the counselor side. Now, our respondents responding to the survey and the interviews were 121 responses on the general public survey. And we got to interview 5 Muslim and 5 Christian counselors, which is quite a good number. Now for the results of the public survey first. For the demographics, we looked at the gender first. With 121 responses, about 68.6% were females and 31.4% were male. So majority of our respondents were females. As to religion, we decided to include the 5 major religions acknowledged by the government of Indonesia, which is Islam, Christianity, Catholicism, Hinduism, and Buddhism, because there was no way we can control where our survey would land. So we included all 5 religions in our survey. And in our responses, we got 21.5% Muslims, or N26, who responded to our survey, and about 63.6% Christians, 14% Catholics, 0.9% Buddhists, and 0 from Hindu. So majority of our respondents were from Christianity, followed by the Muslims. Next, we also looked at the age. As you can see, most of our respondents were in the age bracket of 19 to 29, which was about 28%. And then the second largest is in the age bracket of 40 to 49 years old, which was 26%, sorry. And then the third one is between 50 to 59 years old, about 25% of the respondents. And then the fourth group is from ages 30 to 39 years, with about 17%. And then 60 to 69% respondents, we had about 3 of them, and then 70 to 72 years old, and 2. With work or profession, we got quite a variety of them. As you can see from this slide, the largest group are employees, both private and government employees, with 31.40% of them. And 38, and about 29 of them have been in counseling before, responded yes if they have been in counseling before. And then we also had medical doctors, we had teachers, We had housewives, students, church workers, businessmen, unemployed, and other professions, about one each of these professions. And as you can see, I have highlighted several professions whose respondents have been in counseling before. Like for the 3 medical doctors we had, all 3 have been in counseling. For the 10 teachers that we had, all 10 of them have been in counseling before. For the 16 housewives we have, there are 12 of them who have been in counseling before. And then for students, 9 of them have been in counseling before, 15 have not been in counseling before. For church workers, 3 of them have been in counseling. For businessmen, out of 7, 4 of them have been in counseling before. So we got quite a number of professionals who have been in counseling or who are open to counseling. So now let's go to the questions. The first question we asked was, have you been in counseling before? From the 121 responses, 60.3% responded yes, or 73 of them. And then 39.7% responded no, they haven't been in counseling before. So majority of our respondents actually have been in counseling before. The second question was, if you have been in counseling before, if yes, if you answered yes, did you choose a counselor from your own faith? From the 73 who answered yes in question 1, 86.3% answered yes, they chose a counselor from their own faith. And 13.7% said they did not choose a counselor from their own faith. So that's quite a number. About 63 said yes, they chose a counselor from their own faith. Quite a good number choosing counselors from their own faith. But for those who answered no to question number 1, if no, would you want to see a counselor to help you with emotional problems? It's interesting because 43.75% said yes, and 56.25% said no. And for those who answered no, that was the end of the survey for them. Okay, I think the number is interchanged here. There should be 7 here and there should be 21 here. Sorry for that. And then for those who answered yes in 2A, if you ever decided to see a counselor, would you choose someone from your own faith? From the 21 who answered yes to question 2A, 71.4% said yes, they would choose someone from their own faith. And 28.6% answered no, they wouldn't choose someone from their own faith. So quite the majority said yes. And then this is question number 3. For those who answered yes to questions number 1 and 2. Did the counselor use religious terms in counseling? 63% answered yes, the counselor used religious terms in counseling. And then 21.9% said no, the counselor didn't use religious terms in counseling. And then 15.1% said, I did not notice whether the counselor used religious terms in counseling or not. For the fourth question, we asked them, do you think it is good to mix faith in counseling? Quite a good number said yes, it is good to mix faith in counseling, with 86.2%, and only 13.8% said no, it's not good to mix faith in counseling. And then question number 5, they answered to the question, do you like it when the counselor uses religious terms in counseling? And another, and the same result turned out here, 75 or majority of them answered yes. 79.8% answered yes, while only 20% answered no, they didn't like it. Question number 6, using religious terms in counseling, and we gave them 4 choices, whether it enriches the counseling, it is confusing, it makes no difference, or should not be done. So the result is 72.3% said that using religious terms in counseling enriches the counseling. And only 1 answered, it is confusing when the counselor uses religious terms. And about 10% answered it makes no difference whether the counselor mixes religious terms in counseling. And about 16% said it should not be done. I prefer not to mix faith and counseling. Now for the results of the interviews. We had 5 Muslim practitioners, mental health practitioners, and Christian mental health practitioners. So their qualifications are, they are licensed psychologists. This is Muslim female 1, Muslim female 2, who's a psychologist 2, Muslim female 3, who's a psychologist, Muslim male 4, who is also a psychologist, and Muslim male 5, who is also a psychologist. They are all licensed psychologists. For Christian practitioners, this is Christian female 1, who is a counselor, who's finished a master's degree in counseling. Christian female 2, counselor psychologist, also a licensed psychologist. Christian female 3, also finished a master's degree in counseling. Christian male 4, who is a licensed psychologist, and Christian male 5, also a licensed psychologist. For the questions, we asked them, here's question number 1. Do you agree that faith is related with mental health? Yes or no? And all of them answered yes. The Muslim counselors and Christian counselors said yes. They all agree that mental health or faith has some correlation with mental health. And then for the second question, do you agree to mixing faith in counseling? Yes or no? The Muslim counselors, 4 of them answered yes, but the way of mixing it depends on the client's faith or depends on the client's background. But there was one who answered no. He doesn't agree to mixing faith and counseling because he said counseling should be free from counselor's beliefs. The counselor should focus instead on the client's values and not on his own beliefs. For the Christian counselors, all 5 of them answered yes, while the last one answered yes and no. Yes and no because it depends on client's condition or agreement. The third question was, does mixing faith and counseling has benefits or positive impact? Yes or no? The Muslim counselors all said yes, especially for respondent number 3 or counselor number 3. She said that for clients 40 years up, it is very beneficial. But for the younger clients in her practice, she said they don't mind faith very much. For Christian counselors, All of them said yes, that mixing faith and counseling has benefits or positive impact. And some of them said clients feel strengthened or more resilient. Clients know that they are not alone, for they believe that God is with them. And then the fifth one said counselor experiences God's providence during counseling. And then we asked them, do you mix faith and counseling do you mix faith in your counseling practice? Yes or no? For the Muslim counselors, we got a mixed response. The first one said yes and no, because it depends on the client's faith. There are those who are apathetic towards religion, do not believe in God, or have no faith. So for them, she doesn't mix faith in counseling. For the second one, she said yes, because I use SEFT. SEFT is spiritual, emotional, freedom technique. And so it carries with it a spiritual aspect. So she always uses this technique in her counseling. Third one said yes, but the fourth one said no. I use client-centered therapy, so I look at the values of the clients instead, not from my own faith. And the fifth respondent said no, for most of my clients, no. But sometimes, yes, if a client is, if it is applicable to the case, it depends on the case at hand. For the Christian counselors, all of them said yes. They mix faith in their counseling practice. For respondent number one, she said that if a client has the same faith, I do prayer before, during, and after counseling. For respondent number two, yes, for example, quoting scripture verses, she would do that. And for respondent number three, value of counselor's faith colors the counseling process. For respondent number five, she said it's either, it can be yes or no, depends on the client's condition and the client's faith. Number five, do you use rituals or terms in your counseling practice? Religious terms or rituals, yes or no? Muslim counselors, we also got a mixed response. The first one said yes and no, depends on the openness of the client to religion. The second one said yes, SEFT rituals. She uses SEFT rituals according to the client's faith. SEFT uses prayers in their counseling. The third one said yes and no, depends on whether the client is receptive to religion. The fourth one said no, because I do not use my belief in counseling. And the fifth one said yes and no, because it depends on the client and the case at hand. For Christian counselors, all of them said yes. But the third respondent said yes, but not always, depends on the client's condition and faith. The fourth respondent said yes, using the terms that clients know or are familiar with. And the fifth respondent said yes, by using universal religious terms to clients with different faiths. Our next question was, are there cases where mixing faith in counseling do not apply? For Muslim counselors, they said, the first one said, when clients are not open to religion, then mixing faith does not apply. The second one said, problems of absenteeism in school, problems of children with special needs, developmental problems, then there's no need to mix faith in counseling. But the third one said, in my practice, none yet, except clients who are 30 below who are not very receptive to religion. But in all my clients, the clients, he or she mixes faith in counseling. The fourth respondent said, in all cases, we should not use religion in counseling. And the fifth one said, when the client does not believe in religion, then that mixing of faith in counseling should not apply. For Christian counselors, The first one said, cases when clients disagree with mixing faith in counseling, then we shouldn't mix. The second respondent said, when it is not a good time to talk about faith. Respondent 3 said, divorce cases to prevent clients from feeling judged for their sins. And then respondent number 4, in cases which are not necessary to talk about faith, for example, parents' communication problem with children. And respondent number 5 said, not sure. Okay, now another question that we asked them, how do you mix faith in counseling with clients from different faiths? The Muslim counselor said, I encourage them to pray according to their faith. The second one said, I encourage them to attend their church or pray according to their faith. Then the third respondent said, I talk to them according to their faith. I studied in Catholic schools from preschool to junior high school, so I know some of the prayers. Respondent number 4 said, I base discussion on what they believe and their values, not on what he believes. And then respondent number 5 said, I use the general terms or questions regarding faith with my counselor, with my clients. Excuse me. For Christian counselors, respondent number 1 said, I use religious terms that clients know or are familiar with. And then respondent number 2 said, depends on client's willingness or agreement, if I can use my faith in counseling. And then in respondent number 3 said, I share about what my faith says regarding the issue at hand. Respondent number 4 says, ask the clients how they have relied on God all this time according to their faith. And respondent number 6 asked for the client's belief regarding problems at hand. So this is how they mix faith in counseling with clients from different faiths. As you can see, they have different ways of mixing faith and religion in their counseling practice. Then in trauma cases, how do you handle questions about God? Because in trauma cases, questions about why God allowed this to happen, where was God when it happened, usually arise. And so we ask them how they handle questions about that. For Muslim counselors, most of them said, I would check the client's background and his or her experience about God. The respondent number 1 said, listen without judgment and use other techniques. Respondent number 2 said, I will ask them to talk to a leader from their faith. Respondent number 3 said, I check their religious life and encourage them to talk to God according to their faith. Respondent number 4 said, as a mirror, I try to reflect on the client's words and feelings and explore its meanings to them. So he doesn't really talk about God to his clients. And respondent number 5, when the client introduces religious concept, that becomes a bridge for me, where I talk to them in general terms about God. For the Christian counselors, respondent number 1 said, I listen empathically and honestly answer, I don't know why God let this happen. Respondent number 2 responds or tells the client that we might not always understand, but I believe that God never let bad things happen to his children. Respondent number 3 said, sincerely responds emphatically without judgment. Then respondent number 4 says, raise awareness about positive things that clients can be grateful for. And then respondent number 5 says, guides the client to see God's providence during hard times. So we now come to the last question. Do you think clients like it when you mix faith and counseling? Yes and no. For Muslim counselors, we also got most yes answers. The first one said yes and no, because there are those who are open to it. There are those who are not. So she uses positive psychology, especially virtues. For respondent number 5, yes and no also, he answered yes and no with the same reason. There are those who do and those who do not like it when I mix faith with counseling. For Christians, we also got a mixed answer. The first respondent said yes, clients like it. Second respondent said most of my clients have no problems with it. Third respondent said I have never met a client who disagree with it. But fourth respondent said no, most of my clients do not relate their problems to faith. And the fifth respondent is yes and no, because some of my clients like it, but some don't. So as you see, when it comes to clients liking it, the mixing of faith and counseling the answer can be yes and no from the perspective of the counselors. So analyzing these results, we understood that both public and counselors' opinions acknowledge that faith affects mental health and mostly agree to mixing faith and counseling. As you can see from the survey, most of the clients said yes, they agree to mixing faith and religion, faith and counseling. And also with the interviews with counselors, they also agree that yes, they mix faith in their counseling practice. Second one is that faith is considered most helpful in instilling hope and a good foundation in facing problems. Almost all of the counselors, both from the Muslim and Christian faith, have seen that mixing faith and counseling have positive impact or benefits. Number 3, in mixing faith and counseling, client factors are taken into consideration, especially the client's faith, their values, their preparedness, also their receptiveness, and their religious experiences. It is important for the counselor to take this into consideration. Number 4, in trauma cases, counselors do not have a different way of handling questions about God. They either seek outside source or revert to their default technique. What I mean is that there is no special way of handling trauma cases. There is no different way of handling trauma cases, especially in questions about God, with cases that are not about trauma. And then number 5, we found that modality of the counselor constrained or aided mixing faith and counseling. For those who practice, who use the technique of SEFT, or with spiritual aspects, it aided mixing faith and counseling. But for those who use the technique of client-centered therapy, where the counselor's faith should not be taken into consideration and should not be the focus of counseling, then it constrained mixing faith and counseling. And so we get to the last part, which are questions. We have questions, and we would like to have questions from you, from the audience. First question is how to mix faith and counseling. How can counselors ensure clients' needs for counseling in religious terms? Like should there be questionnaires, different methods of counseling, community networks of different faiths? You might have ideas as to how to do this. The second question we got is regarding the age and mixing faith with counseling. Do counselors have a role in mediating faith, no faith between the generations? Do counselors have a role or a mediating role? Do they affect mixing faith and religion in the different age brackets? That's what we've been wondering. And then number 3, and the last one, regarding education and profession and counseling. The question is, how do counselors mediate faith of client and professional environment? What are the factors that mediate professionals to seek counseling? So these are the questions that we came up with. We hope that you can discuss with us your thoughts and also raise questions for us.